Hey, it's the Sporting Tribune Today podcast, and here's the deal. Southern California, two teams in the NBA playoffs, but one is like actually in the playoffs. The other, they're going to have to play this week and figure out who they're facing. So we're going to start off with the Clippers. Clipper Nation, you about to get some love and joining us for a second time. The man who covers the Clippers for us here at the Sporting Tribune, does it for SI as well, Joey Linn. Joey, what's cracking, my guy?
What's going on, man? Yeah, like you said, two LA teams. I would say two LA teams in the postseason right now, one of them in the playoffs. We'll see what happens with the Lakers. I think they got a pretty easy path to get to the playoffs. They get to face Minnesota with no Gobert, no Naz Reid, no McDaniel. So I'd imagine both teams that eventually get in, but as of right now, we got one.
If they don't, then they'll feel how Clippers fans feel, which is kind of embarrassed for so long. So I love the way that you put it. You guys are in the playoffs. The Lakers, they're in the postseason. And look, when I look at all the matchups in the first round, it's a star-studded affair when it comes to the Clippers taking on the Suns. You got KD, Devin Booker, Kawhi, Paul George, CP3. And that game's going to be on Sunday. We're recording this Monday afternoon. This is dropping Tuesday morning. We still don't know what time. We know the game's going to be on the 16th, which is a Sunday. 4 versus 5. And obviously this is the rematch of the Western Conference Finals in 2021. But before we get into the series, I need to ask you what Kawhi, because obviously you're covering the team, all the press conferences pre and post. Have you seen Kawhi smile at the podium this season? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes, I have. I have seen him. Actually, I got one out of him early in the year. I asked him about Pat Bev because Bev on his podcast had made a comment about how he and Kawhi will kind of battle it out every day to see who can get to the gym earlier, who can get in the weight room earlier and stay longer. So I asked him about that and he smiled a little bit. So it's not a regular occasion, but it does occur.
Every once in a while. Props to you for getting that out of him. And of course, when it comes to the Clipper side of this series, I think the biggest cause of concern when it comes to the roster is Paul George, who I believe he announced on this podcast he'll be out for game one at least. So for you covering this team and everyone awaiting your injury reports every day to see who's actually going to play, when do you expect PG to be back?
Yeah, so he actually didn't say on his podcast if he would be out or not. That came from Shams. He put that out earlier today. PG kind of teased an update on his podcast yesterday, but it was ultimately kind of a big bunch of nothing when he actually dropped it this morning. He said he's working. He said he's putting in, hours of rehab, 6 days a week. But ultimately, he said he doesn't know when he's going to be back, but he is, going to do all he can to be back. From what I've heard, I would be surprised if we see him at all in the first round.
Mhm.
That is kind of the expectation around the team right now. Obviously, it's not ruled out. The possibility of him making a return, it's a little bit too far away to say because you got to think this isn't baseball, right? Like the 7 game series stretches out for
2 week
multiple
affair.
weeks. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that does, I think, leave the door open potentially for maybe a return towards the end of round one. But as of right now, from everything I'm hearing, I wouldn't expect that. That's kind of where we're at right now when it comes to PG. But in terms of any formal update from him or the team, there really hasn't been one.
And obviously that's a huge blow, but with this team, it's kind of been the status quo of this season of who's playing and who's not.
It's been
And
the
all
status quo of this era.
Yeah, no, honestly, all hands on deck situation. And I said it in the intro how star-studded this first round matchup is. For you personally, when you look at the other possibilities that could have been, because this wasn't cemented until every game was played, all 82. Do you prefer playing the Suns, or would you prefer the matchup against the Kings, or maybe another team as well? Or is this matchup the one that is going to be their best chance to
Yeah, so I don't think
advance?
it. I don't think anybody actually prefers the Suns, right? Like I think that
Uh,
would be tough to say, just because obviously you got KD in the mix now. They haven't lost with him yet, so I don't think there's anybody out there who would necessarily prefer that matchup. But I also think too, a lot of people are overlooking the Kings, especially as it pertains to what a potential matchup with the Clippers would look like. Because if you've watched this team all season long, they have struggled mightily with any level of pace, athleticism, youth. That is just one thing that the Clippers do not have and they do not match up well with. And that is exactly what the Kings are built on. Obviously, the Clippers had a couple of tough losses against them this year, but I think over the course of a 7 game series, you would really see that overall age start to come into factor there with the Clippers being older and them being slower. Not exactly a matchup that I particularly wanted to see. So while the Suns aren't exactly who you want to see either, I think it's a little bit of a toss up there, just strictly from a matchup standpoint. So obviously it's going to be tough for the Clips, especially without PG for however long he's going to be out. But I was not one of those people that was in favor of them trying to tank to get Sacramento.
And when you look at the game on Sunday, the regular season finale against the Suns, I believe it was the third quarter. Suns were leading 86-82. You look at the injury report, of course, Paul George wasn't playing, but everyone else on the Clippers was playing. Meanwhile, for Phoenix, you had Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Cam Payne, Bismack Biyombo, TJ Warren. They all sat out. This was a tough game. The Clippers needed to pull away. So I say all that to ask you this. Do the Clippers have any chance of advancing against the Suns in the first round, in your opinion?
I think they got a chance. I think you always have a chance when you have a guy like Kawhi Leonard, right? I think that's one of the things that makes the Clippers always a threat is when you have a player like him, you pretty much drop him in any series and he has a chance to be the best player on the floor, and that's even in a series with Kevin Durant. So I think somebody like that gives you a chance against anybody, right? Like, are they favored? Of course not. Would you expect them to win without PG? Probably not. But in terms of what they could potentially do, I think you can't rule them out just because of Kawhi Leonard. And also, too, I mean, weird things can happen, right? Like shooting variance is a real thing. And we've seen Nicholas Batum have games where he goes off, right? And he's the type of guy who's been struggling. He's due. Norman Powell's a guy, same thing. Like he can get hot. And it's kind of what you're going to need, right? Like, would you expect it to happen with how you've seen the Clippers play for much of this season? No. Certainly without Paul George, you wouldn't expect that. But weird things can happen, man. You get Kawhi going beast mode. You get him going, kind of playing the way he's been playing. You get some good shooting from Nico. You get some good shooting from some of the other guys, and maybe you got a chance. So you certainly can't rule them out entirely.
For those watching on YouTube, you see me smiling because I'm also realizing that, hey, it's a team going up against Chris Paul in the playoffs, and you always have a chance against Chris Paul in the playoffs. That
Right.
is coming directly from me. This is my
He
quote.
certainly is. There's no way Chris Paul's ever lost a series he was favored in, right? Like that would never happen.
So when it comes to the Suns and seeing this team play throughout the year, covering it like you have,
Right.
what are the keys to attacking the Suns that you think that the Clippers can kind of exploit?
Well, one of them, you just brought him up, but I mean, Chris Paul is not the defender he once was. I mean, if you have Patrick Beverley going at you and talking about how you're a cone on defense, obviously a guy like Russ, Kawhi, like they're going to be hunting out that switch for sure. So it'll be interesting to see. I'd imagine they'll probably open up with throwing CP on Batum because obviously Batum is not a creator. He's not moving around a whole lot on or off the ball, so I think it'll be easy for CP to kind of hide on him. But that's on the Clippers now to put him in action, to bring Batum up, have him setting the screen. And I think that's one thing that Batum does give you in the starting lineup that Marcus Morris didn't, is that if you do want to use Batum as your screener and as your roller, he is a savvy playmaker. He can make plays out of those short rolls. He's not really a threat to finish off of them, but you do kind of trust him making plays. So I think that's one of the things that you'll see the Clippers try to do. And then obviously, too, you're going to want to try to wear Kevin Durant out on the defensive end, right? So I don't know who he's going to be guarding. I would probably anticipate him serving as more of like a secondary help rim protector than actually like starting out on Kawhi. They'll probably have Okogie on him, but we'll see what happens with that matchup. You're going to want to try to make him work defensively as well, especially considering he has only been back for a few games since another long injury absence. So there are some particular matchup things the Clippers are going to want to try to do. In terms of if that's going to be enough, we'll see. But there's definitely a level of intentionality the Clippers need to have about attacking this matchup.
It is the Sporting Tribune Today podcast. Joey Linn joining us, fellow Sporting Tribune guy, also has his own podcast. We're going to get to his plugs before we get out of here. But let me flip the question this way. So now for the Suns, what are your biggest concerns that the Clippers have where the Suns can attack? Obviously, point guard has been an issue. We've talked about it before last time you were on. But what do you see are the biggest threats that the Clippers need to watch out for?
Yeah, so before the season started, my biggest concern with the Clippers was their point of attack defense, their roster construction, and nobody was talking about it. Everybody was talking about backup center. Everybody was talking about, what's John Wall going to look like? Like, there were a lot of other conversations surrounding the team entering the season. I felt like I was the only one talking about their lack of point of attack defense because since Patrick Beverley, they have not had good defense from their guards. It's been really bad, and it's continued to be really bad throughout the course of this season. And you could argue that it's even gotten worse with, having to play combinations of Bones and Norm and having to play three guard groups with Bones and Norm and Eric. So that's my biggest concern because you see the way that Phoenix attacks, and obviously they have KD now, but they're still so guard oriented with CP and Booker running so many of their actions. And when you go back to the 2021 series, Patrick Beverly was playing amazing defense on Devin Booker. And if it wasn't for Kawhi Leonard being hurt, I literally think the Clippers would have made quick work of Phoenix because Pat Bev had Book locked up. And the problem was that while he was dealing with Book, the Clippers didn't have anybody else to deal with CP. Well, now you don't have a guy like Pat Bev around. You don't really have anybody to deal with Devin Booker in that way. Like, I'd imagine they'll probably give Terrence Mann a look on him, give Russ a look on him, and give those guys kind of the responsibility of trying to get over those screens and trying to stick with him. But what you saw with Beverly in 2021 is that he's really one of the best pick dodgers in the NBA when it comes to guard defense. He was getting around picks every time and getting rear contests on almost every single Booker jumper, and it really bothered him. He blocked several of his shots from behind, and he bothered a whole lot more. So without that level of point of attack defense, without that level of pick dodging and things of that nature, I really think the Clippers are going to struggle with the guard attack of Phoenix because Norman Powell, very bad defender. He's obviously great offensively, but he's been horrible defensively. Bones Highland is not there defensively. Eric Gordon is not there defensively, although he did do a decent job on Booker earlier this season. Over the course of a 7-game series, I'm a little bit more skeptical of that. So we'll see, but that is by far my biggest concern is the Clippers guard defense.
And before we get you out of here, some things on the Clippers, and you brought up Bones' name a couple times. Obviously, in the finale, a little bit of what are we gonna call it? I don't want to call it an altercation, a
Yeah,
kerfuffle. There was a
right,
kerfuffle during a timeout, not to the
right.
effect of Minnesota, between Mason and Bones. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so Ty Lue actually addressed it after the game, and he said that they figured it out. He's like, it's obviously high tensions last game of the year, and from what I heard, it was just if you watched the play before, there was a bit of a defensive breakdown between Plumlee and Bones, and one of them was supposed to go to the corner and get Terrence Ross, and neither of them did. Both of them ran to the post, so I don't know exactly who was supposed to be in the corner. I'd imagine it was probably supposed to be Bones, but Terrence Ross got a wide open three, actually missed it. But then what happened where I think it kind of blew up was Mason grabbed the rebound after, because you could see when Ross ran to the corner, Bones and Mason are looking at each other like, somebody go to the corner, and nobody
Yeah.
did. So he missed. Mason grabs the rebound. Bones runs out in transition. There's only like 6 seconds left. He's clapping his hands. He's like, give me the basketball. Mason looks him off, and he takes it all the way. So I think Bones kind of took that personally. He was like, well, why are you
Well,
running the ball up the court? I'm the point guard. Is this personal because you're pissed because I blew a defensive coverage or what's going on? So I think that was what it was about. Obviously, nobody really told me that, but based upon what I gleaned and kind of what I heard, that's what it looked like. And then I just think there's been building frustration just with the bench defense. It's just been so horrendous, dude. It's been bad. And obviously, they just have a bad personnel defensively, but I think there's been some building frustration with the lack of resistance both on the perimeter and the interior. So I think that was just kind of the buildup of that. But in terms of it being anything serious, it's not. They worked it out. Ty Lue said, if you're not getting it right, then fight then. Who cares? Like, let's figure it out. And he said we played better after that. So it's not a thing.
Well, look, this is a tough situation. Therapy has taught me two things can be true and two things can be wrong. So in this case, listen, Bones, as the guard, your ass is the one who's running to the 3-point line. But at the same time, Mason, I don't ever want you running up the court with the ball, my
Right.
guy. Don't
Right.
ever do that. You're both wrong. A couple suicides, and that's it. The other thing I did want to ask you before we get to your predictions is, I think it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago that the Lakers played the Clippers, and after the game, it was interesting to hear the Lakers' comments about how they were guarding Russ, and just flat out, Anthony Davis was like, our game plan was to let him shoot. I think that speaks a lot about the situation in the other locker room at the Crypto. But for the Clippers, I think it's been cool to see from the outside looking in here in Vegas and seeing it on social media. The Clippers kind of, how do I say this? Like hugging Russ and really showing him some love and like really appreciating him. So I guess my question to you is like, how's that dynamic been for half of this season since he made the move to the other side of the arena?
It's been incredible, man. I mean, obviously, I'm in there and I see it, and I talk to guys, I talk to Russ, and from everything I've seen and heard, it's been incredible, man. He's been a locker room leader. He's been a leader on the court, leader on the bench, leader at practice and in the weight room. So I've heard nothing but good things about his fit. And when you watch him out there on the court, he seems to be playing with a new level of life and passion. And I think that that's something that he needed. I think it's something the Clippers needed as well. Because man, this team they've been flat at times this season. They needed a little bit more tenacity, a little bit more energy. I think he's brought that. So the fit's been fantastic so far.
And those t-shirts were super dope.
Those are
But
hard.
now
I got one in my car right now. Yeah.
yeah, let's go. Keep that. All right, our last question for you. It is time for predictions, good sir. A best of 7 series, Clips and Suns. How do you see it playing out?
You know what, man? Clips in 7. Why not? Why
Let's
not? You know what I mean?
go.
Why not? It's one of those things where obviously I understand why they're not favored, but you got a guy like Kawhi on your side. You got a motivated Russ. Why not Clips in 7?
You know why I love that? Let me check here right quick. Not that DraftKings.com odds were right here in my face. The Suns are the favorites to make it out the West still. What are they at? An 84.6% chance to win the series. But guess what? Not over here. This is recorded. Joey Linn said it. Clips in 7. And before we get you out of here, just let everybody know where they can get your coverage. You've been phenomenal with the Clippers. I know that when the Clippers season ends, or you're still doing it now with the Angels with baseball season ramping up. So just let everybody know where they can check out everything that you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously got my pod here with the Sporting Tribune. I'm probably gonna be recording another episode today, try to preview the series a little bit, kind of get into some more in-depth thoughts on that. So I got that pod. That's the Clips Combo Show for the Sporting Tribune, and then yeah, Angels coverage, like you said. I'm probably not gonna be tweeting a whole lot about the Angels on my personal, but I've been running our socials at the Sporting Tribune when I go to the games. So obviously follow that account if you want more Angels coverage and stuff like that. Then I'll be doing write-ups, Angels write-ups as well. But yeah, you know where to find me, Joey Linn _ on Twitter. That's where I'm doing all my stuff, game day stuff, live tweeting, all that quotes. So yeah, man, it'll be fun. Like I said, I understand why Phoenix is favored. And if I were to really deep down, dig deep into my analysis bag, I would probably, lean that way as well. But it's hard to bet against Kawhi. It's hard to bet against a motivated Russ, which is why I think the Clippers got a chance in 7. So we'll see what happens. But until next time, man, I appreciate you having me on.
No, 100%. It is the most star-studded first-round matchup, and Joey has us covered here with the Sporting Tribune. As always, good sir, we'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro. Thanks.